what would you say to somebody who said maybe has gone down the route of like pornography, use that visual stimulant, and now is struggling with, say, connecting with their partner?
Whatever it is that you've transformed into what you desire as a sexual stimulant, that can be reprogrammed. Remember, these are all stories. Woo! Once again, my brother, bringing us into a whole new day. The sweet serenade of those beautiful notes that come from that angelic voice. What a gift. What a gift from the Tao. I thank you, brother, for an incredible, amazing contribution to our evolution when it comes to sound. Timeless. Welcome to the consciousness of the way. My delectable divine co-host, Jade.
Hi.
Howdy doody.
Howdy doody.
And I'm your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master Sun Quinn. What an incredible day today. Another amazing day on Tao's incredible earth and manifestation of reality.
Yeah, it's a beautiful, beautiful sunny day.
Gorgeous. Absolutely.
Gorgeous, yeah.
I never did, well, I do understand, yet it always comes across as sort of like taking a little sip of haterade. Oh, it's horrible and windy and choppy and rainy outside. I had no idea people were adverse to a change in weather as if it's like bad luck. It's raining. Oh, my goodness. It can't be good. But again, once again, we come back to the same old thing that we talk about every day here on this channel. Duality, consciousness. Where are you? How do you perceive your reality? What is it doing to you, your environment?
And how does it affect you?
Yeah.
Is your glass half full? Is your glass half empty?
Right.
Is your glass just a glass?
Right. And I mean, this is the wonder factor of to be or not to be. That is the question. Oh my goodness, I got you, Shakespeare. You're down with it, my friend.
Maybe we should do a little costume for upcoming Halloween. A little Shakespeare costume.
Shakespeare. Yeah, / whatever else. I find it interesting. And that sort of comes to the incredible topic that we're talking about today is Taoist Sex Magic 101. And people are like, really? That's a little controversial. I don't know. Do you want to talk about that? Well, absolutely. Let's talk about the incredible synergy of those two energies, yin and yang, male and female, what that does when the convergence of those two energies, how profound that is, and the synergistic effect, the cognitive spark that takes place when they come together, and you create this miracle from conception, human life. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think just the miracle and the scientific idea of reproducing whatever species it is such a, you're like, you can't even comprehend, like, who thought of this? How did this get designed? How did this get implemented? Because it's so powerful, and it's such a kind of an amazing, surreal thing. And it truly is magic or miracle, that being able to reproduce, being able to have that connection, and it's magnificent.
Yeah, I mean, it's something that Jade and I are in awe of every day, and just the ability to witness it, to bear witness to, from conception to realization to birth. Excuse me. Incredible. And, the beautiful thing is we're all designed to be able to do that.
Yeah.
If you are in the right place at the right time, things happen.
Yeah. Yeah, and it is. I mean, I think people don't talk about it enough. But I think it is a really important topic, and especially the spiritual aspect of it, and the kind of connection you have. Everything is energy, and this is a physical touch with one another is such a powerful form of it, that I think people kind of get lost in the, like, oh, we can't talk about that, you do that behind closed doors, but it's something that needs to be discussed a little bit more, and people need to feel comfortable kind of exploring that for themselves, and realizing how, like I said, on a spiritual aspect, how powerful that connection really, really is.
Yeah. I mean, within Taoism, we there's a process that we go through, unifying the field as one, even though you identify with it and you realize it as one. As we talk about the singular, the ultimate, the being at one with everything, all is one, one is all. You are the field is you. We've gone over this, and we systematically go over it over and over again, getting people to come to that understanding. There's a whole nother level of shift when you take a yin and yang energy and you merge them, converge them into one, creating a coherent synergy, synchronicity. And from that, one incredible effect is, of course, life. And then it just continues to elevate from that point on, because now you're doubling down on sort of like a supercharged times 9, times 18, times 36 rippling effect that takes place when two human beings merge as one, taking their spirit and energy body and merge them as one within this reincarnation. Whew, we got some magic going on here. So you kind of double up when it comes to manifestation, you double up when it comes to healing, you double up when it comes to magic, because it's like the souped up, supercharged version of whatever it is that you're doing. So, whenever we do group healings, whether it's 5 people, 10 people, 1,000 people, there's a synergistic link that takes place. More commonly, this auric link, and it's like clockwork. The coherence that takes place. Once I sync, it's the rippling effect on the whole audience. They sync systematically. They sync, and it has a lot to do with neurology and understanding how you dip into the ebb and flow of the universe, i.e. the field, and that rippling, it's like a tidal wave. You've ever seen, you've gone to, a sporting game, and they do the wave where it goes through the audience, like from one side of the field to the other, it's very much like that when you sync a group environment healing. Now, some people might refer to this as in more common psychological settings, a psychodynamic loop. It's an integration of your rapport with another person, but on a much deeper level. Let's just start with the spirituality aspect and the energetic components. So once I synchronize, there's three major energy centers. You have the lower dantian, which people refer to as the gut, the middle dantian, which people refer to as the heart, the upper dantian, which you refer to as the brain. Now, within Taoism, these are very intricate energy centers that are made up of 81 chambers of energy, information, and light. Each chamber has those three components: energy, information, and light. And there's 81 of them in each energy center. And it's like, you can imagine, I'll take you on the ride right now. When you set them off, it's like kick charging or kick starting. When you put your key in the ignition, you turn it on in your car, and it fires up, and you hear that engine. That's what takes place when you synchronize a dantian. And so all 81 chambers fire one after the other. Bam, 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 bam. And it's an enlightenment like you've never experienced before. Now, if you were to refer to that on a neurological level, something more in line with some type of quantum physics model, you would have an understanding of how those energy centers supercharge using a 0.07 millivolt of electricity right down to a proton, right up to a cellular level, mitochondria level. You have so much energy in your body. Now, these energy centers are very clear. They've been documented throughout Taoism for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, as far back as the Yellow Emperor, who discovered, energetics, and I would have to say is the granddaddy godfather of energetics, going back 10,000 years after it's documented within Taoism. This is where it all started, guys. From a Taoist perspective, from an Eastern cultural perspective, it all started back within the Yellow Emperor and the documented discovery of his realization of these energetic components, which are in the Golden Pavilion, or more commonly, the Yellow Emperor's Canon. So, very well documented, very minimal translation over these thousands of years, but we have enough translated evidence to reflect on the mechanics. And once, of course, you become more in tune with yourself and you're able to channel these energies directly, it's not a problem. I mean, I don't need the Yellow Emperor's Canon to decipher what it is that he meant to describe within his journals and his documented scriptures that have gone back thousands of years. I talk to him personally. It's quite easy. It's very, very, very simple once you get this down. Now, again, I always refer to it. Jade and I always talk about this. You must be the source of your information. So if you're not channeling, or you don't believe you are, which you are, again, I'll drop the bomb, boom, all thoughts of your mind are not yours. This has always taken place. Mm-hmm. So now we get back to those 81 chambers within the upper dantian, 81 chambers in the middle dantian. Same thing, you fire them off once you hit that ignition. Now remember, the ignition is reflected on the correlating energy. So upper dantian is the sun, middle dantian is the earth, lower dantian is the moon. Now, when you correlate those particular energies, they have a triggering effect when you draw them into your field through a transformational ritual, and they systematically fire off each one of these 81 chambers that create this plutonium dump site of energy. I mean, that's how I would describe it. I mean, It's like your body has it's like working, but it's got its own agenda. You literally have this 81 chambers oscillating within each energy center, and they're illuminated, they're vibrant, and of course they're reflected on much deeper understanding of the Tao Te Ching, much deeper understanding from the Tao Te Ching to the actual reflection of what that is, which is really the magical register for Taoists. And that has a much deeper meaning when it's reflected on each chamber within the dantians. So, I mean, we can go down the rabbit hole. It's not really a rabbit hole, but to have a more fundamental understanding, you have these three energy centers. You fire them off with a correlated energy source, i.e. lower dantian, the moon, i.e. middle dantian, the earth, i.e. upper dantian, the sun. You fire these off through a transformative ritual, and now you're playing in a whole nother ball game, because you've already activated your energy centers between the earth and the universe, connecting these through other alternative practices. Most commonly for Taoists would be a traditional, practice called the microcosmic orbit. Again, still there isn't a real deal one out there. I teach it, but no one else does, as far as I'm concerned. I have yet to see an actual legitimate microcosmic orbit that is reflected on the true understanding of that synergy. And so, on a much deeper level, when you look into the cycle of the energies, as we understand, we talk about, the universe is in you, it's out of you, you are the universe is you, you are the universe is you, back and forth, up and down, in and out. The end result is the field is you, you are the field. So you have an entry point, what we call the Jade Emperor's Palace, which is your lower dantian, which is reflectant of your JING level, which is reflected on your kidneys, which we call the Jade Emperor's Palace. That's an entry gate level for building your constitution. Also an entry to the moon energy, which kickstarts the lower dantian in the 81 chambers. There's a whole rippling effect that takes place. That starts oscillating, and through that oscillation, you have a pivoting point where it's in reversal, because most people would say traditionally to create coherence, you're taking the energy in and out through the heart center. And I would agree with them to a certain extent, depending upon the system of what it is that they're doing. This is a transfer. It's an entry point. People study on it. People talk about it. It's very familiar for the quantum physics model, that this is an entry and exit point for information into the field. Electric, magnetic. We get the point. We've talked about it. Jade and I go over and over it again. So understanding that you're now synergized, you have these energy centers, more traditional practices, a microcosmic orbit. It activates certain, access points from your kidneys all the way up to your byway, which is the top of your head. But the secret source comes into the 81 chambers and the correlating energies that are activated through specific rituals. Now you're containing some incredible super source that you use when you're engaging in sexual practice, right? And of course, this can be cultivated. And this is a myth that I want to address, and I would love anyone that wants to have a healthy discussion about the limitations of sexual practice and what it does, especially for a man, because there is this incredible myth about, if you have sex and a man ejaculates, then they lose their essence and they lose their JING, their life force. Well, again, that's a myth and a fast. In essence, when you understand the interconnection with you and the universe and your ability to access the black hole, that one, on a fundamental hormonal level, every time you ejaculate, you elevate your production of testosterone. You don't diminish it. That's just a fundamental physiology thing. But I will say that there is this incredible myth where you internalize the energy. You can reflect on things like Kama Sutra, Tantra, things of that nature, and they hinge their premise of understanding the system by holding the energy in, your ability not to release. And I'm sorry, but I would love to have a healthy discussion with anyone that wants to dispute this, because everything is energy. And when you understand your intimate relationship with the universe and the black hole, it's infinite, abundant, timeless, endless, limitless. There is no end. So you're never going to be caught in a situation where just because you believe you've released fluid from your body, you do that in all different types of ways. Let me see. You go to the bathroom in 1, 2, whatever you want to call it. You're releasing things from your physical body. These are just a pass-through, a deposit, and that includes men and women's orgasms and release of body fluids. Same difference. So what people need to understand is people would reflect on a woman as what we would consider an incubus, where they're taking energy, but they're never releasing it. It's a fundamental structure of a woman's physiology, and on an energetic level, they level up every time. If you were to look at it at face value, they have a never-ending experience that they can hone in on and craft their skill and create, this non-stop orgasm. Well, that can take place with a man also, but they don't have to internalize the experience so that they're not physically releasing something. You can still, everything is energy. So let's say, for example, a man has a release. Not 9 times out of 10, you'll know whether you have mastered the ability to transmute that energy and re-up or level up your energy source, because there will be fundamental differences, right? So in most cases, people fall asleep, whatever. That can be good and bad depending upon your ability to manifest, your ability to train within Nigong and Qigong. So what that does, if you understand how to transmute that energy, and once you have a physical release, redirect that energy into your lower dantian, even if you go to sleep, you're dropping down into a brainwave, which we call epsilon, which is highly creative, highly evolving state of consciousness that goes beyond something that you see or hear, because you're dipping deep into this unconscious place of knowing, which is on the stage of what Lao Tzu always teaches us about, which is concept, consciousness, knowing, unconscious knowing, and being. So it's a place of creativity. And those brainwaves are second to none. They're parallel to the highly conscious brainwaves of gamma. So if you're in either one of those, you're creating magic at will. And so the more you craft your skill within lucid dreaming or dream magic, as it's titled, you'll be able to do whatever, whenever, however you want within your reality.
So would you say that the best time to want to manifest something or be in that space is right after like a sexual interaction and climax?
Yeah, if you don't even have any intention, that's a great time. It's a highly creative, manifestative, healing moment. You are the field, and then of course, if you work in concert with someone, that unified field, that unified oneness that comes from a yin and yang energy, well, all bets are off with how charmed your reality is going to be, because you can pretty much do anything. You're doubling up on the juice, like there is a double up. But just, as one individual has the access to infinite, abundant, timeless, endless, limitless access, which is what the black hole is, and it's interconnected with you from your protons all the way up to mitochondria, the cellular structure that you visually see as wave into matter that is your physical body, you double up on that. Holy moly, you're already superhuman. Anything is possible as one, as a singular representation of oneness, and then you do double that, and your intention is unified and concise and to the point, knowing exactly what the two of you want to manifest. Ay caramba. Pretty much.
So that's a very powerful time to
to
pray, to manifest,
right.
to create,
right,
magic, all of that stuff.
Right. And normally, let's just say there's a mutual agreement of a point of climax. You are then transmuting that energy, both of you receiving it, a deep surge in your lower dantians that are then replicated, then drawn back together, just kind of like that metal man from Terminator.
Mm-hmm.
So it separates at the point of climax, it supercharges, then comes back together, then returns back to the individual, supercharging all dantians at once, which is, some crazy, crazy stuff. Now, some people would reflect that because the symbiotic fluid that's released going up your spine to your brain, which someone would call a Kundalini experience, is another whole different deal than what I'm talking about. This is a very, very ancient sort of Taoist practice. But again, transmuting that energy through training of Qigong, understanding that when you use a thought, a feeling, and an emotion, creating the kinesthetic response, using something like the Way 126 experience, that you can basically, through visual and audible, create a kinesthetic response, which is a supercharge that validates that it is real to you. Man, you just get deeper and deeper into your craft, more creative, more profound at what you're able to achieve using these energies in concert with another being, i.e., someone of the opposite sex, because that would be the ultimate synergy, yin and yang. I'm not saying that it's not possible with the same sex. It is. We're talking about energy. You can transmute energy into anything. So that is debunked in of itself. If you're looking to create a miracle of reproduction, then of course you're going to want to do this with the opposite. But you can do it with the same sex. Absolutely. And you can transmute it any way you want. And that's a skill, too, that comes with training in Qigong, that you can develop that skill and transmute it into the opposite energy. So if you get a double dose of yang, say, for example, same-sex energy, you can transmute it in concert with your partner so that it blends and converges as two opposites. And then they come together as one, instead of getting a double dose of yang.
Yeah, I kind of see it like figure skating pairs, or like even dancing, like, tango, that type of stuff. You see someone do it on their own, single, but when you have two people that connected together, the tricks they can do, if you've ever watched figure skating, the flips, even like dancing, the guy throws the girl up and catches him on her neck with her legs wrapped around, and then she flips 7 times. It's like you watch that connection, and they are both vibrating at the exact same level, that it's like, this is a very similar thing, where when you put those two together, the things you can do and feel and the energy transfer that you can have is so much more powerful.
Oh, yeah. And so, you look at that as a transformation, and that's just two people that are crafting their skill. Two opposites, yin and yang, two yangs, two yins, whatever it is, it can all be transmuted to get the delivery and the access that you need that's necessary. It's always good to come in with a yin and a yang merging as one. That's where you get the highest bang for your buck when it comes to manifestation and healing, magic. You need to be aware of that, because that's that duality coming together as a singular, which transfers and transmutes into the reality that you create from the magic that is tangible. And so you use these energies to pretty much, it becomes so tangible in of itself that it's palpable. So the limited aspect of it is, in my opinion, something that I would love to have a conversation with someone about, if they believe they want to debate the point that, you have to internalize, you can't release, or you're going to minimize the amount of strength or ability to level up on your JING levels, which is a fallacy.
Energetically, what like if someone says, hey, I'm celibate, or I've been celibate, like energetically, what does that look like for them?
Well, again, so if you're celibate, we've gone back over this, we'll go over it again. Your brain doesn't know the difference between something you imagine in your mind and something you experience in this 3D reality. Think about that one. And so there's elements of value to pornography. Yes, that's right, I just said it. Because you have to understand, people are still able to, and this is the fallacy also, because most people will lean upon some study where they said there's a different type of chemical reaction that takes place. You elevate your dopamine response when you're, self-copulating or pleasuring yourself, and you don't get the same alchemical response, which would be reflectant of interaction of the opposite sex, i.e., or let's just say the same sex. If you connect with this person and you are emotionally connected, the triggering effect will be the same. That means that you will have an oxytocin response. So that oxytocin response is something that normally comes, nitric oxide, oxytocin. These are the feel-good chemicals that come with interaction with other human beings on a much more intimate level, and that comes with gratitude and love. That is sort of a trigger response from the physical interaction. I will absolutely debate anybody that says that, well, that's not going to happen if you just self-pleasure. No, that's a falsehood, because your ability to change the state you're in with this, it's really this, is up to you. So all you need to do is the good old-fashioned one that, Jade and I constantly refer to, is once you see it, you can't unsee it. So that means that all we need to do is give you the framework and understanding of the mechanisms that take place. And even if you don't have the physical experience, you're able to create that alchemical response within your physical body like that.
And what would you say if someone says, okay, I just met someone, I'm really connected, I'm attracted, I want to connect our energies sexually. What would you say is the best way for someone who maybe is, very new entering this, to connect with that partner, to not only feel it, physically, but maybe have that energetic connection as well?
Right. Well, first and foremost, you got to start with, what's your mindset? What are you coming from? Are you coming from a place of duality or a singular? Are you one or are you multiple? Are you thinking or are you knowing? These are the two separators, the two differentiators that will determine how you want to perceive your reality, how you want to approach your interaction. And, ultimately, when you have a fundamental understanding that we are one and there's no separator, then you approach this experience completely different. So you're not in fear of. You're not, oh my goodness, if I give my energy source to this person, blah, blah, blah. Well, it's a really interesting thing. I'll reflect on a situation I had many years ago with someone that was one of my students. And they got in a situation where they were involved with really what I would call a mind-melting psyop of basically mind control of a group of Wiccers that had set up this I'm not going to say a shell, it's like shell company, shell situation where they created this idea where they were luring these men into this situation where they approached it at face value as an cultivating class, where the woman would lay on a table and she'd have no pants on, and the man would pleasure her, and it would just be this sort of like one-sided sort of pleasuring sort of cycle. And in actuality, what was really taking place when you look at the energetic component, I was taking a closer look and examining and experiencing the experience. They were sampling and drawing energy from the men as they were responding to the chemical response of the women. Now, how does that work? So, Sifu, what are you talking about? The guys weren't doing anything. No, they were not. But they were. Let's get back to the understanding that what your mind doesn't know the difference, the brain doesn't know the difference between something you experience in your imagination or something you experience in this 3D reality. Oh, yeah, mic drop. Okay, so you have these men that are, I don't know, fulfilling their sexual fantasies, whatever it is, and they're pleasuring these women with no reciprocating sort of like return. And so you would think, oh, well, okay, that they're bummed out, they don't get anything. No, I mean, this is what mirror neurons are, ladies and gentlemen. Let's get with the program. Your mind doesn't know the difference between something you create in your mind and something you experience in the 3D reality. What does that mean in essence? Well, when you understand that, the mirroring effect, the mirror neurons in your neurology has a absolutely rippling effect on everyone around you. So these people are being stimulated by something that they're doing, that they're engaging with another person in some sexual act that is cultivating, in essence, the end result is an orgasm. That particular woman is drawing that energy in. She's not only just drawing that energy in, she's sucking from the participant, even though he's not having a physical intercourse with her. She's drawing from. It was like, holy moly. And so this happened to one of my students many times, and they'd come to me and they'd be like, I'm really exhausted. And I was like, well, what have you been doing? And they told me what they were doing. And so I started looking into it, and it was just like this literally covert operation of, psychic vampiring, sucking the energy and the life force out of like 30 or 50 guys. There were 30 or 50 women that were laying on these tables. It would sound like some type of like swinger orgy. It wasn't anything of the kind. It was a bunch of Wiccers that were drawing energy from their victims. They were victims. They were victims of psychic vampiry. And you're like, holy moly, does that take place? Well, of course, because you're creating this environment where the man is lured in by the thought of or the opportunity for some type of sexual release, which never takes place, but they don't realize their energy is being drawn from them. And I mean, this goes way back in the day, but understanding that, you're getting a mirror neuron response. So how would someone be able to harness that energy? Well, once they're trained in it, they can harness it quite easily. So you have this woman who's absolutely climaxing. She's climaxing, creating an energy. She's drawing it back into her lower dantian. But on top of that, the other participant that is pleasuring her with no physical return in theory is being siphoned because they're interconnected and their mirror neurons are stimulating him. So he's having an internal energetic climax that he he knows is taking place. He may not have a physical release, but it's taking place. The chemistry is being ramped up, and so the mirror neurons are working effectively in that way. This woman then takes the energy that's been generated from his physical body as he's experiencing this interaction, draws from him. He does it once, twice, 3 times a charm, and he feels like every time he goes around for another dose, he's so drained by the time he gets home. I'm physically exhausted. Well, no doubt you are. You are vampired, my friend.
Yeah.
So be aware that this can take place. So getting back to Jade's question about someone who's celibate, that doesn't have a physical interaction, doesn't have a partner, doesn't have someone else, you can absolutely activate and stimulate these energy centers and create the cultivation that is necessary to get the same response. It's more of a mastered skill that you, if you're given the right formula, you can create, but it's absolutely doable for anybody. 100%.
Yeah, and like you said, with these mirror neurons, it's like you're being pleasured by the idea of pleasuring someone else. That is your pleasure.
You know, I mean, my goodness, it's not hard to understand. You look at someone who's just, you know, pleasuring themselves in one way, shape, or form, male or female. They're either using a visual stimulant like pornography, or they're creating a scenario within their imagination. I.e., guys, we just went back to the whole thing. Why is it that people will only refer to, well, if it doesn't make a difference, your brain doesn't know the difference between imagination or the 3D reality, how come that's exempt from sexual interaction or sexual fantasies or whatever else is necessary that someone creates? And that dopamine response can be a helping or a hindering depending upon who you are, your mindset, whether you live in a duality, whether you're singular, whether you're at one with everything, whether you're a master at any skill of cultivation. When you're a master of skill of cultivation, it doesn't matter what the scenario is. You're able to transmute that into a concentrated energy that you then put into your ecosystem that is your energetic body, and you create this profound effect that builds on itself, and it gets stronger and stronger and stronger.
Now, what would you say to somebody who said maybe has gone down the route of like pornography, used that visual stimulant, and now is struggling with, say, connecting with their partner or connecting with another person, because they've kind of entrained themselves to have a specific visual versus that physical, interaction.
That's a brilliant question, Jade, because I mean, yes, I'm speaking to everybody that somehow, in some mysterious, weird way, ended up realizing that, you know, their sexual fantasies turned into 2 circus midgets in the corner of the room and a donkey. Whatever it is that you've transformed into what you desire as a sexual stimulant, that can be reprogrammed. Remember, these are all stories, okay? So you've trained your body to have a dopamine response that's satisfying to you. You get all these other alchemical responses if you know what you're doing and you're really masterful at transmuting the energy through this body, and your energy body is on. You can absolutely mimic the nitric oxide, the oxytocin, the feel-good chemicals that are the dopamine, and balance those out so that it's satisfying and it's nurturing, and then transmute ultimately that core energy from a release that you may not have physically, but it's still happening. So have you trained yourself into a no-win situation where I just can't do it unless I have the 2 circus midgets and the donkey? Absolutely not. That's not the be-all or end-all. It's, again, we talk about stories. Stories, that's all it is. It's a story. And as fast as you've created in your imagination, you've created in your realization of your 3D reality, you can turn it into anything and everything you want, on and off, at will, What better way to do it? A visual, audible experience, having kinesthetic response, validating the supercharge that makes it real to you, unique to you. No two experiences are the same. It works with your unconscious, giving you the prescribed response, validating that you are the field, i.e. the Way 126 experience. You can create new synapses in your brain at will, developing new information energy highways that will give you a whole nother track that you're walking on, a whole nother track that you're running on, a whole nother track that you're riding on in your pathway to cultivate these energies. But no, it's not the be-all or end-all. You haven't worked yourself into a situation where you need therapy for 6 months, 12 months, 5 years. You're a bad boy. The worst thing that I could ever imagine someone giving people title to is that they own something as them. And title is always the beginning. Because if you want to truly be able to transform in a 5D reality, in this 3D, you have to be able to be at one with everything. And that's Midas, the title. So when you get someone who's a therapist or someone who's putting you in a program where I must identify with, I am an alcoholic, I am a sex addict, I am a drug addict, and I have been sober for X amount of days, I have been celibate for X amount of days, I have not used that's in my opinion, from all the years I've been doing this, not a really good way to help someone solve nothing more than a hurdle. All they're doing is coming to the realization this was a tool that they used. It evokes certain alchemical responses in their physical body, having a neurological effect on their brain, which can be transformed if you know what you're doing. No one has to be a victim to their circumstance. No one has to be a victim to their emotions. No one has to be a victim to what they've been perceived as a lose-lose situation. No one is a loser. If you're a human being, you have a neurology of a human being, you have the 5 senses, you are one powerful individual that can create, manifest, conquer, heal anything and everything at will if you're given the tools. That's all that it comes down to.
So getting to that, would you say that somebody who maybe feels frustrated, I'll just speak on a men's perspective and then a woman's perspective, like low testosterone, low libido, I feel like I have no sex drive, I'm looking for these kind of alternative things to stimulate me, would you say that the best fix for that is more on a physical level or an energetic level?
Well, to be or not to be, that is the question. Yo, go Shakespeare. Excellent question, Jade. Let's get back to what we talked about. Your brain doesn't know the difference. Doesn't know. So, you want to do it the physical route, you want to do it the mental route, you're going to get the same response. You're going to get the same result. And there is no end, there is no limit to what you're able to achieve because you have this incredible tool. And all you need is a roadmap to get back to your default of perfection manifest. That's it. And so when you understand how to get back and you have the default button, you're right back to the perfection that you were born into this world with. And you can be resuming business as usual, programming as usual with this understanding and this laid out map that takes place when you're able to open it up. No one has to be subject to their circumstance. No one has to be limited by their situation. No one definitely has to be left to their own devices per se as, a lost cause, or it's never too late, it's never too early. It's always just right. And as long as you're a human being, you have a nervous system, you have your 5 senses, you are going to be able to be a co-creator, a singular, a one of everything and anything. You are the field just like everyone else. So you can reset yourself at any point. And so please, ladies and gentlemen and ladies, do not submit to someone telling you that you are something. You have a choice to decide what that is. You have the power to recreate, reinvent yourself at any point in your life. The sum of your life experiences is not the sum of your life. It's just the moment right here, right now, that has determined what you've experienced so far and what we've talked about, understanding how to remove the emotion and the energy that makes it wisdom that you can reflect on and use as another tool to advance yourself within your level of consciousness in this natural born life. Booyah!
Yeah, getting right into now maybe more the woman's perspective, fertility. I think it's such a, it can be a good or a bad thing topic. And infertility, of course, I think plagues a lot of women, and they feel frustrated, and kind of naturally society says, okay, you know, let's take you to an infertility treatment center, or, you know, let's go down that route. What would you say to a woman who wants to be pregnant, is struggling with it, but maybe wants to do it more on a holistic kind of energetic transformation versus, you know, an IVF or something like that?
Right. And I mean, Jade and I can speak from experience. Clearly, this is rhetorical. What she's talking about, she already knows, but she's doing that. She's asking questions because it's informative for the audience, and I'm very grateful that we're doing this for the audience. Let's split hairs. There are fundamentally two reasons why you would have some type of general blockage. There could be three, but it depends on what you entered this world with. But let's just say what we've experienced over decades working with people and giving them the gateway to reproduce, which always seems more overwhelming. And when they bring it to us and they show it to us and we give them the missing components, it's very simplistic. The two things that we find fundamentally over and over again that are obstructions for most women that we've come across is either their mental emotional state or their physical state. And they're like, and most people are like, okay, Sifa, duh, that kind of is why you can't produce and reproduce, and that's why they're asking, what do you need to do? It's more to that than that. It's a little bit more of an understanding, guys, than just that. So when I say physical, it's more a dietary thing that is not evoking and turning on the specific gene expression that's necessary for you to be in a fertile state. So when you're switching off these Saturn genes that are basically the maestro and conductors of your longevity and regulating all your hormones in your body due to dietary decisions that you have made that turn on and off your gene expression, which you can do from here, but you also can do from your environment. That's why they call it the epigenome. Epigenetics in of itself is the product of your environment. Your whole body's gene expression is being altered by your environment. Understand that, guys. So it's not just, you're standing next to the plutonium dump site and it's affecting your cells. No, if you're in an environment where you have a bunch of people that think the same way, do the same thing, it's generally because they've replicated each other's experience, and we've spoken on it before. Jade's talked about it, the group environment. You get a bunch of people, i.e., a woman's soccer team, basketball team, whatever. They get so regulated and synchronized together that they're all experiencing their monthly cycle at the same time. That is part of the mirror neuron mystical, magical synchronicity.
And you notice it the opposite way too. A lot of, especially on social media, you'll see like a lot of groups of friends will all be pregnant together,
Right.
or like sisters, or
Right.
you know, groups of women that like maybe hang out all the time together, are all of a sudden like having kids, you know, a couple weeks apart, a couple months apart. And that I kind of noticed the opposite of that as well.
Right. Right. And so that's one aspect, is the nutrition, the food that switches on and off your gene expression. Most cases that we've come across over decades is more a deficiency of fat that puts them in an environment where they're unable to switch on the genes that are necessary for them to be fertile. And in reflection to the mental emotional state, same thing. Same thing. So it's really two of the same things that lead to the same path, and the response is the same.
Yeah.
Because if you fix one, it fixes the other. You fix the other, it fixes the one. It's all part and parcel of the same deal.
Yeah, and we've worked with a lot of different women who have come to us and felt really lost, or kind of like, I'm looking for another word. Insufficient comes to mind, but like, you know, like incapable.
Yeah.
And, you know, again, like we always refer to, and like you refer to, your body is like a flute.
Right.
And it's like if your flute is full of, you know, garbage or blockages, or, you know, you can't get anything through it, once you remove it, the energy just flows. And it's like, that's basically what happens.
Yeah.
And so just removing those blockages from certain places, specific to that individual, has created a lot of excitement for them.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely, because they get to have that aha Death Star moment where they're able to conceive.
Yes.
And so, you know, this comes back down to that fundamental understanding, guys, the hetero action. A human being, when they start something, they must finish it. It's quite simple. It's that simplistic. So when you are attempting is the key word here. When you know, it changes the whole playing field. In most cases, 99% of the time, if they're in front of us, they're attempting, they're trying, admission of failure, to achieve this goal. And when you start switching their neurology, whether it's from their mouth or from their thoughts and their actions, it all comes back to the same place. So knowing that, you get some fundamental crazy results, because you are looking for a validation of the truth. We talk about it within the Wade 126, the whole rippling effect of a visual audible experience creating a kinesthetic response, the supercharge that validates the truth to you, that this is really happening. This is the truth. This is your neurology speaking to you, telling you you are the field. Shoot out that magic. Shoot out that manifestation. Shoot out that healing, because you're validated. You're in that state. That's that state of oscillation, the brainwave, the gamma frequency brainwave, the physiology, the chemistry, the coherence between the heart, the brain, and the gut, syncing you with the universe and the earth, making you one with everything. Whew. And so you validate it as a human being. So if you don't get pregnant the first time, the second time, the third time, well, you start feeding on that mindset. You start believing, oh, well, it's not possible now, is it? Oh, man, I'm disappointed again. You keep looking for it, it doesn't happen. You keep believing it's not happening, it doesn't happen. You keep believing, it doesn't happen. You keep doing it, it doesn't happen. It keeps going. I mean, it's a cycle, and you become your worst enemy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I think coming from a personal perspective of just a woman, that mental, emotional, I don't think you realize how many hurdles or limitations you can create for yourself just with that simple kind of disappointment or expectation or limitation. You go, oh my God, I have to get pregnant. I'm 40 or I'm 41, or my what's the classic one? My maternal clock is ticking. It's like that mindset in itself is maybe unaware to you that it's already creating these blockages and limitations. And just like you mentioned before, everything is a story. Everything can be deleted, added, removed, inputted.
Yeah.
and it's like it is the easy thing. This is not something that is stuck with you forever.
Right. I mean, you look at someone like, I think Madonna, what was she, like 58 or something when she had her last baby? Something of that, for that type of age. And again, that would come from her mindset and understanding that, I ain't stopping at nothing. I'm going to keep doing whatever the hell I want. And age is nothing more than a number, and that's probably not in the equation of her perception of her reality, which then is reflected on her ability to reproduce, to create. And, it starts and ends with here.
Now, what would you say? I feel like a lot of coming from a marital perspective, a lot of people who have maybe been married for a long period of time or even a couple years, it's really exciting in the beginning, and then life kind of happens, and that, say, sexual excitement or sexual connection kind of fizzles out.
Right.
What would you recommend for a couple, even if you're not married, who is kind of going through that and struggling with, it was so good in the beginning, and now we're finding it hard to connect or energetically be the same.
Right. So I wouldn't recommend 2 circus midgets and a donkey. No. That's not on my recommendation list, even though you may have morphed yourself into believing this is a stimulant, this is an excitement. And it's really strange how people, acquire their sexual preferences, their desires, how they lead themselves into sort of like paint themselves into a corner where they're very limited, and those inhibitions are being trapped inside. They're being squeezed down, pushed down, and I can't do it. I'm American. I mean, what was this whole thing about Americans are such prudes, and then, the English are kind of a little loose with their whole expression, then Europeans are literally handing it out like a handshake. It's something to do, it's another a day in the office, and it all has to do with your state of mind, right? I think in Paris it's an ongoing thing. The mistress, you must have the girlfriend and the wife, and I was like, this is some Hollywood BS, but in actuality there is some type of like cultural thing where it's quite accepted in Paris to have this sort of like a synergistic thing going on where there's, a polyamory, something to that effect, where you've got 2 or 3 people having a relationship at one time, and in most cases it's going to be, 2 of one and 1 of the other, or vice versa, whatever, and it comes back down to your mindset, and when you start using, it's lackluster. What's a classic one? Oh, the honeymoon is over. You're basically fulfilling your self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So you're starting to feel less of. You're not putting in the energy into your relationship. You're not getting the desired response from your partner. So you're starting to believe that it's either you or them, or I need a change. And this normally results in adultery, which happens quite often for a lot of people because they start looking for it in other places. They start reaching out to finding it. And it's like, I'm missing something. I just need the excitement back in my life, which is absolutely ridiculous. And because you can experience the same chemistry, just as I said, your brain doesn't know the difference between something you create in your imagination and something that you're experiencing in this 3D reality. That goes for everything. It doesn't just go for your spiritual manifestation, healing, magic. It goes for the sex magic. It goes for whatever you're doing. So you can still replicate that moment where you smelt the very essence of your partner through one of your many senses, of course, the sense of smell, and you know that alchemical response of what that does, just drawing in their very essence into, your field, and then the taste of them, the smell of them, the feeling of them, and that moment that you synergized and created that oxytocin response where you fell in love with this person, which was the byproduct of your synergy and all those other fundamental sensory perceptions that elevated that. You can replicate that right now. It's not the honeymoon's over. We've been married 30 years. Oh man, I can barely get it up. I can't find my way to the bedroom. It's kind of no. It is something that you have. You're the master keeper creator of that. You can do anything and everything within the bedroom setting, like your manifestations, like your magic, like your healing. There is no difference. So you can replicate that moment, that very first moment you set eyes on your wife, your husband, your partner, and you fell in this hypnotic love, this lust, this desire that you have for that individual. It's instantaneous. You can smell it, you can taste it, you can feel it. It's magical, as it should be, because you are the master keeper creator of that. It starts with a thought, feeling, and an emotion. You get the kinesthetic response, and can you dig it? So, you're going to say?
Oh, I was just going to say, and just like you're maybe replaying this story that the honeymoon is over, it's just that. It's just a story. It's nothing more. And that can be written any way you choose to. Just like, hey, I'm done working in this career. I need to work in another career.
Right.
This is what's, going to make me happy now. It's like the same type of thing. It's mindset.
Yeah. What's the old expression? The grass is always greener on the other side. No. If you're feeling lackluster in anything that you're doing, you reignite yourself with the synergy of the oneness. You create the coherence. That's why Jade and I created the tools that give you the synergistic response that emulates and simulates you are the field, making you coherent, one with the earth and the universe. That is reflected on anything that's going on in your spiritual body, your physical body, your energetic body. It's all taking place at once. So you can replicate that experience instantaneously. And that's why it's so important for you to make sure you are synchronized, because it's normally like one of the partners is like, oh, I'm going to put on my favorite sultry lingerie and I'm going to entice that person. That could be a guy, I don't know, a woman, guy, whatever. You're making it known that I want to reignite this. And now clearly the other person, more likely than not, is like, I'm so tired, I got to go to bed. Come on, man. Maybe tomorrow, maybe the next day. Well, we'll get around to it. Don't you worry, I got you. And of course, this is the missing link. And this all starts with a thought, feeling, and an emotion. You can reactivate that very lust that ignited and was pursuant of their relationship initially, instantaneously. They just need the roadmap. That's all. Once you get the roadmap and you get that synergy, that energy ball that shoots from your sacrum right up to your brain, boom, yeah, that major, oscillating effect that activates the pineal gland, and you start to see magical, mystical experiences with your eyes open or closed, and you're feeling this euphoric feeling from head to toe, which is this, oscillating bliss and euphoria that comes with, operating in a 5, 6, 8, 9D experience, is merging of everything as one. When that merges as one, it's like you're high as a kite. You don't need external drugs to replicate these types of things. I'm not in any way, shape, or form telling you that you taking them is a bad thing. I'm just explaining to you, you haven't discovered the true secrets and the power of who you are. And if you're still using those things and you haven't discovered that on a self-replicating level, you need to follow Jade and I. You need to experience the Way 126, and you will fundamentally understand you have the magic inside you. And you'll look less for something that gives you a very short glimpse of what that experience is, instead of being able to replicate it at will using ancient practices that will develop these skills, so that not only do you not have to wait for this external force, this energy that you're looking for, you can do it instantaneously.
It's like the idea of like, I'm so excited to go on vacation. I feel so good on vacation. It's like, you could wake up every morning and it's vacation. Your
Right.
life is the vacation. You don't have to have that one kind of tiny little moment throughout your entire year that it's like, oh, that was the best. It's like your whole life is a vacation. You experience it every day, waking up, feeling those same chemical responses within it. And I was going to get back to something you said too, with the mirror neurons. We've had a lot of people who, like you said, maybe make advances or feel struggling, but their partner isn't super receptive, and they start doing the 126 experience, and that starts kind of shifting out into their epigenetic environment. And then we start getting, and the partner starts seeing it and being like, what are you like? What
Right,
are you
all
doing?
of a sudden they're
us-
replicating. Yeah, I mean, great
Yeah.
observation. I mean, the 126 can be used for many things, but that's a classic one that Jade is bringing our attention to that I completely forgot about. Is this ability, this rippling effect, because you're altering your DNA instantaneously. That's happening. So the second you get this stimulation, you got excitement, you're horny, whatever it is. That can be replicated in people that are interconnected with you. So you can instantly mirror a neuron, activate their sensory perception, and you can be right in the field dancing and playing in the daisies instantaneously and getting the result that you're looking for. So
it's like by changing yourself and changing you, you're ultimately changing them.
Oh, yeah.
And we do get a lot of people who actually like may have started off using the app by themselves, but then they actually get their partner involved or their wife or their husband.
Yeah.
And then they start using it together, and they actually like do it together, kind of like, a workout partner or something.
Yeah.
And it's like they both you start seeing
Yeah,
this
yeah.
kind of double explosion of consciousness happening. And it's really powerful for the individual. It's also really powerful
right.
For relationships as well. And it doesn't just have to be like a marital relationship. We have experiences where like a son will do it and they'll be like, Dad, you have to try this, or like, oh, I got to get my sister to do this, or like, family relationships as well really benefit from kind of doing it together and experiencing it together. And they mirror off of each other, that synchronicity.
Right. And let's briefly go back to, because people are like, well, he said the 81 chambers and we're in the lower dantian. So what happens is you get into that lower dantian state and you evoke that ball of energy, and we refer to it as the shooting star of Mars and Venus. So depending upon what energy you're looking to emulate and replicate and gather at a higher level of consciousness, male or female, Mars, Venus, you get what I'm saying. Right. Very, very powerful stuff, right? And so that shooting star, which he's saying a shooting star, they're planets. What are you talking about? It has the essence and the imprinting and frequency and vibration of those planets, and we call it a shooting star. This is a ball of energy that goes straight up the spine into the brain, creating that instant magical kaleidoscope experience where you are now like seeing fireworks go off. And so that also activates your third eye, your pineal gland, and you start going down the path of these magical synergies between the pineal gland, the pituitary gland, the thalamus, and they're the three treasures that we speak of on a much deeper level. But that was concluding that, just in case people, he said something, what? And, you replicate that from what we consider the third energy center, and it's orange in its nature. Most people would refer to a Hindu system that would be chakras, and that would be reflected on their second energy center. That's not within Taoism. It's a third energy center. It is orange. It's orange in its color. It's orange in its density, and it is encapsulating and holding your very sexual energy. And so where your libido at will be a reflection of what color that energy center is. Whether it's dull, whether it's vibrant, will instantly give me a determining factor when I'm doing an aura reading on someone, where their sexual energy is and what they're doing with it, because I can just see it in the aura. I don't have to go deep into it. I just go, you're having some sexual issues. You are on fire, girlfriend. And it all has to do with the color. And so there's gradients of different colors. Normally, we normally stay within 9 different gradients, but sometimes it'll subsection into 9, 18, 27. That's a real complex sort of situation that has been going on for a long time, that it transmutes into these different gradients. But generally speaking, the brighter the color, the better you are. And so when you're looking at auras, when you're reading auras, that's very important to understand where someone's sexual energy is, their libido, their juice, and then that's basically the triggering effect when you activate the 81 chambers of the lower dantian that gives you that shooting star effect that we talk about within Taoism, that goes straight into the brain, up the you call it the spine, we call it the Tai Chi pole, and that shoots straight up into the brain, which shoots straight up into the sun. So it's whether it's male or female, yin or yang, Mars or Venus, this is it. These are the two critical essences that are converged together as one, and you can use both. You can have both. You don't have to be limited by. And that again comes down to your understanding and your training within Qigong, and to what degree and level you're at when you're moving the energy with your mind. But that's, that just becomes an unlimited resource when you're able to transmute energy at will in any direction, which defies the basic model of understanding of someone's consciousness or their attention, their intention, and how people would argue that humans are incapable of multitasking. No. When you master Qigong, you can have your energy anywhere in one place or a million places at once with the same gradient and frequency and density and amplitude of that energy at the same density. So, yeah.
What would you say to someone who kind of is experiencing that climax where their brain waves start morphing into at that point?
Mm-hmm. In what sense? What do you mean?
Like when you climax, like
what brain waves are they creating?
What brain waves are you creating?
Right,
yeah.
right. Well, in most cases, you will have two large ends of the spectrum. There'll be a high gamma surge, and then a really low, more likely than not, delta. If not, depending upon how strong their own training is, they will hit at epsilon. So understand this: when you're trained in it, you go high gamma, and then mostly because of the nature of a woman's physiology and the way her energetics are created, she just like charges up. It's like a cup of coffee, man. Let's go. Do it again. And some of these guys are like, oh my goodness, help me. Help. And, that's just the fundamental nature. Women are incredibly masterful at generating energy, i.e., creating life. Mm-hmm. And so you get that high surge. Most women will stay in that high gamma state, and they're just as creative as a mofo. And they're just alert, they're aware, they're energized, and they're at that moment to Shazam it. It's like manifest it, heal it, magic, whatever you want to do. It's happening right there, right now. And guys can go both ways. They can go gamma or epsilon. And depending upon whether they're working in a duality, a understanding their own mindset. They might be limited by, just being limited in of itself, and they just sort of go into, sort of like a delta state, and they go into a sleep, but they're not maximizing the cultivation because they're still operating in a up and down, in and out, left or right, good or bad, which makes that not the same level of consciousness when you're cultivating, when you want to actually develop.
So would you say, like, how some people have the ritual of, whether it's like a musician or maybe an athlete, where it's like, oh, I always perform better if I have sex before, or I get that like creative, maybe it's an artist, I have sex and then I feel so creative, or I feel so inspired. Would you say that that's a tool people can use to kind of get into that state?
That's that state of creativity. And so, most athletes have been trained to believe that it's a state of deficiency. Stay away from it. You're going to hinder your result. That's how powerful persuasion and suggestion is. And then, of course, it becomes your reality because you believe it. Remember, the truth is only what you believe. Your truth is the only truth you need to be concerned with. We'll reiterate it another 5 times. This is how you get to a belief system where someone can say something and it becomes your reality because you've accepted it as so.
Yeah.
Wow. Woo. I think we went over a lot today. My goodness. The magic of Taoist magic.
Yeah.
So, was there anything on closing that you wanted to mention to the audience? Because we covered a lot.
There's a lot. Yeah, there's a lot of layers when it comes to this topic in particular, magic in particular. But this topic in particular, I think a lot of people have maybe their own personal questions or concerns. You can leave it in the comments below if there was something that maybe you wanted a little more in depth on or we haven't gone over. But yeah, I think just incredible information and getting back to the overall kind of theme of everything, that it's like this is no different than any other aspect of your life. If you're extremely satisfied in your sexual experience, it can only be amplified. And if you're disappointed in whatever your sexual experience is, that can be rewritten as well. You are never limited or stuck to something that makes you unhappy or unfulfilled. And this topic is no different than anything we talk about, whether it's manifestation, career, life choices, relationships, anything to that nature.
100. Well, we went down that one. It was good. It was necessary for people to understand they're the master keeper, creator of their reality at any point in their experience, their human being experience. And don't be put into that limited section where you've been convinced that you need to be celibate. You have to be convinced that you have to be limited. When you are controlling the natural instinct of a human being, which is to express, is to create, is to feel things, you're missing out. You're missing out. And so don't let any place, person, or thing dictate your experience by limiting you with the idea that you have to be limited. You're singular, you're one, you're everything, you're all things. And so you're given this human body to experience it. It's not to be tucked away and absent of your experience, because it's the simulator, it's the tuning fork that makes your reality possible. Without it, you're moving right along to your next one.
Right.
So always be aware of that. Always realize that, if you get painted into the idea that you should be less of or not experience something as a human being, i.e. sex, it's a psyop. Someone is attempting to manipulate your perception, and you should run in the other direction. And that way you won't end up with 2 circus midgets and a donkey. I'm just saying. It's crazy, the human imagination and what they come up with, what you define as a stimulant, and whatever it is, it's yours.
Yeah,
and
well,
enjoy
I
it.
mean, getting back to just the energetics of it, everything is infinite, endless, timeless, limitless, abundant.
Right.
And it's like your experience. This is no different as well.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. And with that said, I would like to thank my divine, delectable co-host, Jade, High Priestess Jade.
Yeah, that was fun.
That was a lot of fun. That was really, really informative, necessary, clearly. And I am your humble servant and Sifu, Taoist Master Sun Quinn. And I'll see you in the next one, guys.